Welcome to the Dealmakers Coffee Break. I'm Asaf Raz. Let's go. So welcome to another episode of the Dealmakers Coffee Break edition. And today I have with me Shawn Griffith. He is the owner slash managing partner, I would say, of TWT Multifamily. He does a lot of education, has a great investor community, and I'm talking a lot. I won't take your time. So Shawn Griffith, please take it away. Tell us about yourself and about your business, and we'll continue.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for having me on, and I love the coffee mug, by the way. That's a great idea. That's just phenomenal. So everything you said there. I'm the managing director of TWT Multifamily.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. We are primarily real estate syndicators focused on multifamily acquisitions. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 under our belt. We've got a 5th one that's under contract.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't talk any specifics on that, but, we're always happy to, look at the market and, but I'll give you the nickel tour of how we got started. My wife and I have been passive investors for over a dozen years, and real estate's been good to us. But November of 2020, we were sitting around the kitchen table talking about finances and what retirement was going to look like. And we realized that the bill of goods that Wall Street and corporate America had sold us wasn't quite all it was cracked up to be.
Mm-hmm.
And, don't get me wrong. We had money in a 401k and we'd have had an okay retirement, but we'd have to cut back on our standard of living, cut back on what we give to our church and charities, and cut back on travel. And you saw my background that I had up earlier. We love to travel. And so we said, well, how can we boost our retirement? And we looked at several different options. And for us, the answer was syndicating real estate.
As not as LPs, not as passive investors, but as actively looking into real estate investments and operating them.
Yes, and that statement bugs me a little bit because I really hate the term passive investor.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always try to tell my investors, it's passive income, but that doesn't mean you should be passive.
Mm-hmm.
You should do your homework. You should get to know the sponsor, all the sponsors on a team, not just me. You should periodically track your investments, make sure that, we as sponsors are doing what we said we were going to do. And if not, ask questions. You shouldn't be passive.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah, Shawn, let's talk a bit about your focus in multifamily. Mm-hmm. What territories are you focused on today, and why? What type of multifamily do you invest in usually, and what is kind of your overall strategy looking into multifamily investments?
So we got started with Class C, light to moderate value add properties, in the 80 to 100 range. We've moved up to a little bit larger properties now. The one we have under contract is 195. It's going to be a heavier value add. We're actually doing this one. It's a reposition. We're taking it from a C to a B minus, B plus, because that's what most of the properties in the neighborhood are. So we're going to bring the property up to neighborhood standards. And, our focus is shifting slightly. We're going to be moving after this property. We're going to be focusing on, probably 1985 and newer properties.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why is that, by the way? Why specifically 1985 and newer?
Well, so anybody that's been in this industry more than probably 6 months knows that the older properties have additional challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And, this property that we're taking on is a 60s property. We're going to be putting, probably $3 million of capital improvements into it. And because it's an older property, there's, you have other issues. There could be lead paint, there could be asbestos, there's probably aluminum wiring, there's cast iron pipes, things that eventually cause problems, and you have to plan for all that.
Mhm. So how do you model these things into your deals? Like, how did you make that decision of I'm not going to invest in deals that are earlier than built in 1985, right? How did you get to that
Well, I
conclusion?
mean, I say that, but if it's a good deal, it's a good deal, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
the reason we're buying this 1960s property is because we're getting it at a really good price.
Hmm.
And that allows us to put more money into it. But if you're buying an older property, you've got to know, there's going to be some challenges. Nothing ever goes like you expect it to, and you have to plan for that. And the way you plan for it is you have additional money. I like to refer to it as my oh crap fund. So when the property manager calls you and says, "Hey, this thing happened," and you go, "Oh crap," then you reach into your oh crap fund, you pull out a handful of money, and you throw it at the problem. But if you don't do that up front, well, then you got to go back to investors and go, "Hey, Asif, that $100,000 you invested with us? Well, guess what? We need another 50."
Hmm.
Not a good conversation.
Hmm.
Nobody wants to have that conversation. So you plan for it and you do it up front.
How can you model or plan what happened in the past 6 to 10 months when we talk about the change in interest rates, people that took have very large debt historically and were used to having interest rates at a very low level. How do you model that? Do you think people did, and how did you do that?
Part of it is you have to be conservative. My first property that I bought a couple of years ago, everybody was going, "Oh, you want floating rate debt? It's cheaper. It's cheaper." I'm going, "Well, this is my first property. I want to be able to control my costs, and I'm going to go fixed rate debt." Well, now I look like a genius. I'm not a genius. I just happen to be conservative. And if you have to take that approach to everything, you can't just go, "Oh, I want to get floating rate debt because it's cheaper," which right now it's not. But at the time, that's what everybody was doing. They were trying to shave off every penny. And it's just like repairs on your house.
Mm-hmm.
You can get the cheapest contractor to save some money, but about 99% of the time, you're going to get the cheapest work and the cheapest materials, and you'll end up paying more for it in the long run. So you can't just go, "Hey, I'm in here. I want to shave off every little penny." You have to, but to get back to answering your question about how do you plan for that is you stay conservative.
So do you consider yourself a conservative syndicator? How does that look like when you choose a property to invest in? What are those things that you look for in terms of the entire deal structure, the debt? How much capital are you calling? What are you promising in terms of ROI? Like, what's your cash on capital? So how do you create this model um, within your specific properties and making those choices?
No, that's a great question. We look for properties that we can get at a good basis, and by good basis, I mean below market value.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this time last year, it was next to impossible to get anything below market value because it was like a feeding frenzy.
Yeah.
So we didn't buy too much last year. I mean, I think we got into 2 deals. But a lot of it, you just have to look and some of it's relationships with the brokers. But as far as what we do for capital, our typical deal right now, average deal has probably been around 15 to 18 million.
Mm-hmm.
This new one's going to be bigger. It's north of 20. So we end up, I don't like to go more than 70% leverage on debt.
Mm-hmm.
I might go up to 75. A lot of people go, "Oh, you want to go all the way to 85 or 90? I said, well, no, you don't. You have to remember debt is like a power tool. If you don't know how to use it properly, you might lose a limb. So you've got to be, you have to understand, leverage cuts both ways. And, these people that were highly leveraged and had floating rate debt, and I hope there's very, very few of them, didn't have a rate cap, those are the people that are really in trouble right now. And so we try to avoid situations like that. Is, we either don't use floating rate debt. My preference is, fixed rate agency debt.
Mm-hmm.
Barring that, sometimes you've got a deal that you just absolutely can't get agency debt on. Then you've got to do bridge debt.
Mm-hmm.
And, you plan it out where, you want to have everything beat into shape within, probably a year to 2 years to refinance it. And you build that refinance cost into your plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as far as for what we typically like to offer investors, right now cash flows, it's hard to cash flow because of the cost of debt. We like to get our investors, 6%. Honestly, I'm seeing deals pencil out between 4 and maybe 7, but the 7's rare. And I wouldn't even put that on a document because it'd be too hard to hit right now.
Yep. I'd love to hear more. We talked about the asset types. You talk about multifamily and what you guys are doing. I know that you're focused specifically on, right? Is it Arizona, Alabama, right? Texas? You have probably
mostly Texas. Yeah, mostly Texas. All of the acquisitions that we are directly involved in the syndication, we're the general partner, GP, sponsor. A lot of different terms get thrown out there. Those are all in Texas. We are passively invested in some deals scattered across from Arizona over to Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Very cool. So you have a great expansion, still kind of you're still syndicating, right? But doing it for the past maybe over 10 years. And what I've seen that you've done, which I think is very special, and I'd love if you could elaborate that on a little bit. I see that you also do education, right? You have a kind of an investor community where you work on understanding the process, how do you approach deals, managing how to sell the asset, whatever you're teaching and providing knowledge to those investors. Can you elaborate on that a little bit and tell our listeners how you do that, what do you focus on?
So I leverage a lot of people's knowledge, right? There's no way I could learn everything there is to know about real estate. I mean, that's one of the things I love about real estate is I learn something new every day. And I just like to share that. I don't have a paid program. I belong to several mentoring groups, and we all share knowledge, we all share experiences, and if we have good contractors or good property management people, we're happy to share those. We also give comments on people. Well, you probably don't want to use them, or it's really just about the community and the relationships, right? I mean, real estate is very much a people business, especially the multifamily on the operations side. I always like to remind my partners and my investors that, we have a responsibility to take care of our tenants. A lot of people are preferring the term residents now. And you have to treat them well, and you have to take care of their needs. You have to give them a clean, safe place to live. Because if you don't have any residents, none of the rest of this matters. None of it. Because they're the ones that pay all the bills when you get right down to it. They pay your mortgage. They pay the property management company. They pay the salaries of everybody in the office, and they pay back the investors that helped invest in the property to give the property a lift, a facelift, if you will, or improve the functionality of the property. I mean, the property that we're buying has some pretty major plumbing issues. And we knew that going in, and we budgeted for it. That's part of the $3 million going in. But if you don't go in with the attitude of, hey, you've got to take care of your tenants, your residents, I don't know why you're in this business.
Can you tell me some of the things that you've done, for example, at Riverbend to create better community, better sustainable living for your residents?
Sure, I can talk to a couple of things. Now, the Riverbend one is a little bit different deal for us. We weren't actually looking for properties in San Antonio. We have a couple of friends that had asked us to come in and help with that deal, so we did.
Mm-hmm.
And they are managing everything. Their company is completely vertically integrated. They have their own property management. They have their own in-house construction company. So they do everything on the property, pretty much except full roof replacements and foundation work.
Mm-hmm.
They hire those things out. Now, that being said, when we took over that property, the day we took over, they had, I think, 5 or 6 different teams show up on site. The automatic gates were not working. The pool was in very sad shape.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the vacant apartments were, let's just say, bland. That's probably a good way to put it. You walk in and go, it's an apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing special. They have a prescribed upgrade that they do on all their apartments. They put nicer fixtures, nicer hardware, 2-tone paint. They redo the flooring, where it's needed, and so they were just lifting up everything, making it a nicer, upscale place to live. And that all started day one. I mean, they had guys with equipment and materials, and they just came in there and swarmed over the property. I mean, it looked like somebody had kicked an anthill. There was so much activity going on.
Yeah.
And they're doing an amazing job. We closed on that property April 26th, and we got our first cash flow payment last week.
Wow. That just shows how long it goes to, how long it takes to actually rebuild and reshape a property to fit.
Oh, that's super fast. That's actually super fast. I mean, most properties I see, at least in the last few years, very few of them ever start cash flowing day one. They're usually about 6 months in. We had a property that we closed on in December 23rd of last year, and we just sent our first cash flow payment out to the investors.
Wow, those are long cycles. I feel like nobody's talking about this. So if there's everything we've taken from this episode is great, but this one thing of how long it takes to actually cash flow back, I love how you kind of build it, and I think this is one of the titles of the episode, right? So like you got to calculate it in the cash flow time, and how fast you can pay back your investors, because it's just rare to have properties that are just ready to go, right?
It is. I mean, the Riverbend, the reason it started cash flowing, a couple of months after they took over, was they got it at a really good basis. It was they got it at a very good price, and the property was in reasonable shape. But they had, like I say, they jumped in there and they literally drained the pool. They had some repair work that had to be done, and I mean, just tons of activity going on. They're looking at redoing the office. They're going to repurpose some of the office space. I think they're actually going to use some of that for one of their corporate offices. So the upstairs part will be one of their corporate, like a floating location.
It could become like a mixed use kind of multifamily / mixed use kind of thing.
Well, they're just for them. Yeah, they're not going to lease that part out, but they're going to be able to use some of that space that was right now it wasn't being used.
I think it's a great way to do that. What we always do is what I call the shameless plug. The shameless plug is your opportunity to shamelessly talk about yourself, about your company, what you're doing today, what you're looking for. Could be investors, brokers, assets, whatever that is. But do it freely. This is your time to shine.
Well, Asa, thank you so much. Well, I've got several things going on. You heard me talk a little bit about the deal that I've got coming up. We typically do 506B offerings, which means if you don't already have a relationship with me, we can't do business, but I'm always looking for investors. One of the things that we're going to do different with this deal is we're going to go into a 506B for the first month, and then we're going to convert and do a 506C. So, if anybody's looking to invest, once we go public with the 506C, I'll be able to take accredited investors. Now, I'm also writing a book that combines two of my favorite things that I love to talk about. One of them is real estate, and one of them is travel. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be talking about how to use real estate investing to boost your travel, either to upgrade it so that you move from coach to business, or maybe you travel more often. So
I love that.
Talking about different things like that.
So yeah, this is another episode of the Deal Makers Coffee Break edition, and Shawn Griffith from TWT Multifamily. Thank you so much for joining me. And I love how you're with that cup. That's amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Asif, for having me on. I really appreciate it. And looking forward to maybe some more conversations in the future.
Love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Shawn. Thank you for joining us. Check out more episodes on the Deal Makers podcast, available on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, and Agora's website at agorareal.com/podcast. See you in the next episode.